begin. Welcome everybody to Easy Fun Raw, how to make it easy and have fun while adding a little bit more raw food or much more raw food to our diets for your health and inevitably also for the health of the planet. So I start this very leisurely, and the whole lecture is very much interactive. I allow my audiences to raise their hand when they have a question or want to interject something. And sometimes I cannot address it, but I will try to incorporate the answers. This is a very easy lecture. It works anywhere, and that's why I do not have slides, because I often have it in small circles and on big stages that I don't know before I get there. So, welcome, welcome. Easy. Why does it have to be easy? It has to be easy because we all have incredibly busy lives, right? We have work to do, we have kids to attend to, we have political activities to attend to, and it needs to be easy. It cannot be complicated that we go out and have to seek 10 ingredients that you can only get at this Asian store and only get at that health food store, etc. So it has to be easy for you, and also we are very patterned in our behavior. You may have noticed that when you grow up, your mother makes certain foods, your family has certain rituals, and these rituals stay in our brain like a grid. And whenever we feel vulnerable, and often exactly at the times where we should be eating healthier, that grid comes back in, because we're like, I gotta do something for myself, but I really crave that donut right now, or I really want to have that apple pie. And we're very patterned in that manner, or that hot dog, or that sauerbraten, or that whatever it is that made you feel comfortable growing up is what we crave, because it settles us, it makes us feel at home on planet Earth, and we're going to talk more about planet Earth. So therefore, again, it has to be easy, because transitioning into something else is already hard because of those patternings that we all have. We are also humans. We are creative creatures, right? We want to have fun eating. Everything we do around food is deeply involved in our culture, in our cultural makeup. And every culture I have been to around the globe, I haven't been around the globe everywhere, but I've been in many places, in Africa and Europe and Southern America and Northern America. Every people creates culture around food. And it's delicious, and it's involved with rituals. You know, you wash your hands, somebody goes around with a water bowl, and you wash your hands, and you talk, and then you begin to eat. In some cultures, you can only begin to eat once the mother of the house has settled down. And so there's different rituals everywhere around food. So food also needs to be, we call it fun, but it's really, I like the word joy actually much better. So it's this deep joy that we belong to this community, this family. We sit around, we share food, we break bread, whatever the custom is. It is always involving our sense of this is a joyful event, right? Nobody goes to a food, I have to go eat, and it's just so hard, but I have to do it, so stop it. So food should be joyful, because we humans do not just graze naturally. We actually, in all cultures around the globe, create compositions with food, right? When we make a wonderful soup, it's not just cabbage in water and boil it and done, right? It's spices, it's different vegetables, it's the decoration of the food on our plate, on the table. It's a beautiful table. So it should be fun, it should be joyful, it should be culture. And of course, culture is that element again that comes from our patterning, and we want to continue the culture that we already know most of the time. We have a hard time switching into an entirely different culture. Now, Beyoncé put out a book recently, right? 21 days, I think, or 22 days. Anybody familiar with that? And it is based on the concept or the scientific finding, if you will, that it takes 21 days to adjust to a new ritual, to a new form of doing something. And in her case, she describes going vegan, going high raw vegan, and they did this 21-day program. And by that time, we get reasonably adjusted to the new pattern. Yes?
What is high raw vegan?
High raw vegan means that you eat a vegan diet, and the majority of it is raw. So we call that high raw. Anything over 50% raw would be a high raw diet, vegan diet. Which is what most of us do. Now, I haven't told you much about me because I figure you can read that in the program. I come from a very multifaceted background, was in entertainment, was an actress, then went behind the camera, did a couple of movies, had a school in Zimbabwe and Africa in the 80s for drama and dance, and because I had studied dance in Paris. So health was always part of my agenda, but finally got to raw food when my kids were little, and I raised them vegan at the time, plus eggs, which I probably wouldn't do today, and fish. But I was very, very highly stressed at that time. I didn't sleep much because I thought, I can do this, and I had a mini stroke. So I found myself on the floor like this, was fully conscious. Yes, I was fully conscious, and I said to myself, I gotta get back into that body, my kids need me, I can't just be out. So, and I did get back into the body, and luckily not any visible damage occurred. You be the judge. This is just mosquitoes. So this is now 13 years ago. And at that time I decided the best way to stay healthy so I can play basketball with my grandchildren, and I'm a late mom, I had mine at 40 and 42, is to put the healthiest possible food into my body to keep it intact for as long as possible. And that's when I decided to go raw. Find seats, be comfortable, everybody. You're okay standing? Then that's okay too. Yes?
So have you been 100% raw for the last 13 years?
Pretty much, but I'm not a fanatic. That's the thing. When my kids cook vegan dinners, and I will cook for them, and I will taste. I will eat a few spoons, but today I have a rough voice because I allowed myself to drink some, I think it was chai with almond milk, the regular commercial milk, and that just makes me vulnerable to have phlegm in my body, because when you are clean and out of dairy and out of cooked food, your body loses a lot of the mucus, and that's when you go too much against that. And there was regular sugar in that drink. It was a commercial thing. So then you feel the effects immediately, and then you just be told, well, can't quite do that, and that's okay. So yeah. So it has to be fun, it has to be joyful, because eating is a human activity that's extremely joyful everywhere in the world. And it should be, and that's why it's also so important when we are in a terrible hurry and we just sort of eat something quickly in between because we've got to go to our next meeting or to our next job, etc., it takes that away from us, and it really damages our sense of being well, our well-being. Whether what we eat is healthy or not, it just does that because we lose that sense of community and eating and being happy in our body and in our life, feeding our body. All right, so now the last word, and that's of course the main part of this lecture, raw. Why raw? Why suddenly, after thousands of years of cooking, do we all come along and tell ourselves, well, what's wrong with that? Why does it have to be raw? Okay, and I go back and make a larger statement, or rather a question and answer thing. There are certain laws on planet Earth that govern planet Earth that we are all prey to. We are all governed by these laws, and we cannot change them. What are some of those basic laws on planet Earth? Laws of nature, you could call them. What did you say?
Gravity.
Gravity. You got right to the point. But I want to gather a couple other ones.
We'll all die.
We'll all die. Exactly.
You gotta eat.
We have to eat. We have to get nourishment. What about the planet itself?
Seasons.
There are seasons, exactly. And there's day and night. We can't change that, depending on where we are in the planet. There are certain long days if you go all the way north and all the way south, and certain very short or no days if you go far enough. And if you go to the equator, you have almost the same time all the time, but not quite. The sun goes via the northern route and via the southern route in the seasons. So you still have seasons even on the equator. So yes, anything else that comes to mind? All right, so what are the laws of life? We already heard, we all have to die. All of life dies, right? It has a life cycle. Okay, I go into my little equation now. We have gravity. Thank you, sir, for putting that in. An acorn, you all know what an acorn is? It's that little nut from a big oak tree. Falls to the ground due to gravity when it's ripe and ready, right? So it abides by the laws of gravity. Now it falls happily into a moist soil, and what does it do? It says, screw gravity, I'm going the opposite direction. Up, away from gravity. What's that force? What's that law? Life, yeah. Life force. Now, everything that's alive, give me some other examples. All creatures, all plants, right? When the little calf drops out of the mother's womb to the ground, what does it do? Right? It's very insecure at first, but it stands up. It defies gravity. It moves away from gravity on its legs using its muscles. Again, life. Give me another couple examples of that notion. We humans take a long time, right, to get there. Our babies take more or less a year to freely stand on their feet. But still, the moment the baby is out of the womb, it begins to move. So all life defies gravity. All life is movement. And this life force is what actually infuses our cells. We can go a little bit broader and say, what do we need to keep life alive?
Water.
We need water.
Sun.
We need sunshine.
Nutrients.
We need nutrients, yes. All sorts of different kinds. Plants different from... what else do we need?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, exactly. And nutrients, we could call nutrients all those minerals also that come from earth, from the soil. So we need minerals from the soil. It's like the 4 elements that the Greeks had, right? Earth, fire, air, and water, or in any order. So life is that force that contradicts gravity. Life is that force that actually moves all the time. How long does it take for our whole body to be a completely new body, for every cell to reproduce enough cells so that everything is new in your body?
7 years.
That was the old idea. When I grew up, it was said it takes 7 years. So my parents told me. Today we know that it takes less than 2 years for every cell in your body to be fresh. Your heart has an even faster process of rejuvenation. Your heart takes all of 21, guess what? Not months. Days. 21 days, and you have an entirely new heart, because this muscle tissue is so alive, it always renews itself. We're just not really aware that our body, of course, consists of millions of cells and little entities, and they're always alive, they're always moving. When they stop moving, what do we get? Death. When they all stop moving, we get death. We get sick when certain areas don't rejuvenate properly. When do we also get sick? When cells don't have the right nutrients, what do they do? Disease, yes. They either create a problem where an inflammation occurs, or they just grow wildly without the proper structure because they don't have the information to become maybe a liver cell or a heart cell or a kidney cell. What is that called when they grow wild? Cancer. They form tumors because all these cells are not informed correctly by the right nutrients to form the kind of new cells that they need. What inhibits those cells to form the correct cell? We were talking about nutrients.
Oxidation.
Oxidation, when there is no proper oxidation, when there is not enough good water and all these elements in your cell symphony, and I will tell you in a minute why I call it symphony, then we have cells that die at a faster rate than is normal. Of course, cells die all the time and we eliminate them. In our elimination, most of our elimination is actually not just the food that we eat, but what? Dead cells. Dead blood cells, dead body cells. And of course, we also lose a lot just via our skin, when it chafes off, or when we shower, a lot of it gets washed off. So dead cells need to be eliminated. If they don't get eliminated, they stay in your body and create inflammatory situations. So what is it that each cell absolutely needs to reproduce itself in a healthy manner into the same cell that is needed? We recently have done much more with finding out about enzymes. Anybody familiar with where you get enzymes?
Wrong from the digestive system.
Your body makes
Yeah, the body stores them more than makes them. You're shaking your head. Okay, sorry, I thought you were. So yes, we store them and we run out of fresh enzymes when we don't supply more new enzymes. What's the enzyme supply that we get? Where does it come from? Feel comfortable to just find your seats. So enzymes come from fresh plants, and there's another element that we need for healthy cell reproduction, and that is essential fatty acids. A lot of work has been done by a German researcher who was nominated 7 times for the Nobel Prize, never got it because the fat industry, we think because the fat industry was severely threatened by those findings. We need essential fatty acids, that's why they're called essential, for cell reproduction. And essential fatty acids have a limit in temperature. All of life has a limit in temperature. Okay, that's the law that we forgot earlier. Life has a limited temperature range. When do you get worried when your baby has a fever? At what temperature?
100. Pretty.
You start getting worried at 100. Okay, the 100 is easy to survive. Where does it become difficult to survive? Yeah, for children, 104 is totally survivable, even 105. But at 106, everybody is in danger and probably dead. What happens? The body convulses, right? The brain gives out because the temperature range of life for humans is, we can survive short-term freezing of certain body parts, but we cannot survive inner temperature heating above 106 degrees. We can survive outer temperature above that. We can sit in a sauna for an hour at 150 degrees, right? And breathe into our towel. Anybody ever did that? You breathe into your towel and you notice that your own breath is cooler than your environment. It's like you're cooling yourself down with that breathing into the towel. Feel free to come and sit. Don't be shy. It's all good. So yes, we have another law on planet Earth that is the range of temperature. All life abides by this range of temperature, except for some microbes that may be living on the inside of volcanoes, but we don't really know much about them. Well, I should say I don't know much about them. But life on the surface of planet Earth cannot survive inner temperatures above 120 degrees. Sometimes you can have a cactus in a desert, right? And the cactus provides survival liquid. You can cut into it and drink the inner juices of the cactus. This cactus, however, again, will maintain an inner temperature under 115 degrees even. So it will feel cool and soothing to you when you're in the desert and finding a cactus that you can drink from. So again, so we have another law that life ends at between 105 and 120 degrees. The raw foodists are always throwing out different numbers, 115 degrees, 125, 105, but somewhere in that range, it makes sense, right? Is where life ends. If you put your flower or your acorn again in the higher temperature, if you put any seed in that higher temperature so that the inner part of the seed is hotter than 120 degrees, can you still plant it? Can you still grow it? Will it still sprout? No, it will not, because again, the life force inside that seed, and of course all nuts and seeds are the seeds of plants, so it's an acorn or an avocado pit. That life force is then dead. It can no longer grow. So how do we get from there to helping our body rejuvenate itself with fresh, live juices? What happens when we don't have those fresh nutrients from plants that are under that temperature? Our own cell reproduction gets weaker and weaker, and we have less and less of that enzyme storage. And then occasionally we eat an apple or an orange, or we eat a little salad, and we can survive. But we cannot strive as we could if we had more of that fresh energy in our body. Now I'll go to somewhere where there is proof on the planet. Has anybody ever heard of a people called the Hunza? Hunza. You have. What do you know about them?
Well, they used to be quite healthy until they started getting processed foods.
From my recent research, the core of them still do the traditional lifestyle, though. But the real interesting story is that in and now you have to use your brains and do some calculations. In 1984, a large family from northern Pakistan, from the Himalayas, arrived in London by airplane. And one of the grandfathers, the gentleman walking upright with the hat on his head and everything, had a passport. And that passport read 1838. He was born in 1838. And the authorities at the border said, it can't be, something wrong with his passport, send him back, or a printing mistake, which has to be verified. Now this is 84. Of course, verification was not as easy as today. There's no internet, there's no cell phones. So it took a whole while to verify this passport. And lo and behold, it was totally correct. And there were many others who had similar birth dates. How old was this gentleman in 1984? Shall I walk you through? 1838 to 1938 is 100, right? Mm-hmm. 102 brings us to 1940, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Can you hold that in your head? From 1940 to 1984 is how many years more? It's another 43, so 40 plus 43 makes?
160 something.
Not something, I want the exact number. Okay, let's do it step by step. From 140, 40 more is 180, right? And then we have, so we added those two from 1938. 1938 to 140 was 102, right? So now we have plus 40 plus 4. Can we get there?
146.
146. We have a math genius here. Thank you. Let's give a hand. He was 146 years old. And then a whole slew of journalists flew to the place where he was from. And you can find online a whole slew of articles on the Hunza at that time. So in 1984, this was a big hullabaloo. There are these people, and they found that the average life expectancy of the Hunza was 120. The average life expectancy, including child deaths, etc. So, and there were many people over 140 in this territory. How did the Hunza live? And some still live today. They eat a diet of predominantly fresh and dried fruits and vegetables. They dry their vegetables for the winter months and their fruits. And they fast every summer for, I think, 6 weeks, where they just drink this drink of dried apricots, very high in iron and very nutritious. So they have this cleansing phase in the spring, plus then they have the majority, like 80% of their food is raw. But that alone doesn't help if you just sit back and are like, okay, I'm only eating raw food now, so I'm going to live long. Okay, what do they also do? I know sometimes my acting background comes in handy.
They move a lot.
Yes, they move a lot, and not just move with, cooking, and they also walk a lot because their homes are on different places on this very steep land, and they walk about, on average, 10 plus miles every day, up and down and steep paths where only mules and humans can go. And they, therefore, are very muscular into their old age, and therefore this gentleman of 146 years old was walking upright with his little hat on and appearing old but very fit. So that to me, and I only discovered the Hunza a couple of years ago, so I'm really happy to be able to present this to you. That to me is yet another proof of today that our calculations when we were kids are correct, that told us, I don't know, you must have come across it probably, all mammals live about 10 times their maturity age, their sexual maturity age, right? So a cat is sexually mature after a year, can have babies after a year, right? Cats today live longer than 10 years, most of our domestic cats, right? Who has a cat or has had a cat? Yeah, how old did your cat get?
20.
20? Whoa, ho, ho. There you go. All right. How about dogs? Or other little mammals that we know of? Yes?
19.
19. All right, now translate that to us. What's human sexual maturity age? I mean, it's getting younger now because of all the hormones and everything, but still.
15.
It used to be 14, yeah. I mean, you could say 13 times 10. Duh. Right? So, yes.
Did that gentleman, or did the people, the Hunza people, did they have meat in their diet? Was it,
No, they did not. They had, because they had sheep for the wool, because they make a lot of their blankets out of wool, etc. And they had occasional sheep cheese. So the kind of the feta cheese made from sheep's milk. But that was a very minor addition occasionally to their diet. Yes. And again, I encourage all of you to look them up because it's just fascinating. And and I think, this is my theory, correct me if you think otherwise, I think we stopped hearing about the Hunza because it really interferes with the pride of Western medicine, right? We have longevity now, everybody gets to be 80. Hello? What about 140? So we think we have all these modern achievements, and when we have stories, and this is 20, 30,000 people, or was it 60,000? Sorry, I don't remember, look it up. Whole peoples who live in this lifestyle and have that average life expectancy of 120. And again, I don't know, I would love to travel there. I don't know what it looks like today. Of course, when when people to have a lifestyle like that get exposed to hot dogs and burgers and all of that, that life expectancy goes away pretty quickly. We all know that and we can understand. So, yes?
I was wondering what happened to the poor people that ended up in London.
Oh, they were let in, they were accommodated, and
Yeah, I
yeah.
know, but they
No, I don't think so, because they were, at that point, they were bombarded with journalists, and and everybody's really excited about this finding, and so I think they didn't get damaged in a way or sent back or something. So I think they benefited from that discovery and from the hoopla around them. But of course, we all have the instinct also in us, and I saw that in Africa, in Tanzania and in Zimbabwe, where I was in the 80s. There is this need, we want to belong to the culture of our time or to the technology of our time, right? Especially when we're teenagers. We want to be, me too. I want to have, I want my own TV, I want my own cell phone, I want my own, we want to be part of this new age. So therefore, of course, these old traditions cannot hold. However, roll that forward into all of us who've gone through hundreds, thousands of years of poor food because of the culture of patriarchy and destructiveness. I can talk more about that too. That we're now growing out of. We're no longer in these hierarchical structures that need a lot of death and obedience and might by destruction. We're coming out of that. Us women say we don't want to be the subjects of our husbands anymore. We don't say I'll be obedient in our vows anymore. And when I was in my first marriage, that was still on the vows, even in a civil marriage. Absolutely, we had to take it out. Otherwise it would be, and will you be obedient to your husband? Yes, I will be obedient to my husband.
Did the husband have to be obedient to you?
No, that's the whole idea of patriarchy. Father knows best and is the boss, and everybody else bows. And of course, that's not just in the family. Our whole era had that paradigm. Had the king or the czar or the Caesar and we've created the religions to go with it too. It wasn't like the Greeks where they all were fighting with each other and had affairs with each other. But it was top god, one only, male, and then everybody else under that in ranks. And our presidents and our corporate CEOs and you name it, and on and on and on and on. Yes, that system still prevails, but we are about, and all of us sitting here are about to make inroads toward breaking that up, toward realizing that each of us can be responsible for our life, and we can be responsible for this here body in which we live. We cannot be raped anymore. It used to be, and that's actually in the Old Testament, the father and the grandfather, the males in the family, had the right to the virginity of the daughters, the newborn daughters, if they were under a certain age. It's not there anymore, but a dear friend of mine did the research, and it was there for a long time. You had the right, the males had the right to the children. The children were owned by the father, not by the mother, by the father. Therefore, they could be, the daughters especially could be sold into a marriage. It could be, all these arranged marriages that we still have. So this is the time in human history, to cut to the chase and get to the raw food and why it is so good for us. This is the time in history where we can make that choice. We can make that choice to be responsible for our own body, to bring it to a place where it can heal itself, where it can rejuvenate itself, like all mammals should. Of course, there are many things we cannot do. We cannot clean the air. We cannot wipe the chemtrails away out of the sky. We cannot clean the oceans, but we can do a lot to help our bodies. Feel free to come around. Don't be shy. Yes?
Do you have a top 10 raw foods list?
No, and I tell you why. So, I would love to respond to that actually. So, yes, we can now be responsible for our body, and then we can, of course, argue endlessly what's better than what's what, and so forth. We also, in my opinion, when we want to get away from the hierarchical system, we also need to understand that it's no longer about better than, I'm better than you, you're not as healthy as I am, etc. So competition has to transform into contribution. So lots of different plants can contribute to our well-being, and lots of different ways of making that plant food. Does anybody need information about why we are herbivores and not carnivores?
Yes.
You're all familiar with that, right? I figured that we don't need to go there.
You know, I'd like to hear that. I haven't heard that
Okay.
argument before. I mean, I'm vegetarian, but I've never heard like why. Actually.
Why? Okay, here's my beloved little drama story. All right, we're driving along a back country road. And I say, stop, darling, please. You know, and I open the door and I run outside, and there's this fresh roadkill that somebody left by the roadside. And I dig my teeth in there and I suck out the blood and I chew on that meat and I like get as much into me as possible, you know, as much the skin and the interiors, the intestines of that dead animal, you know. I gobble all that up, and then I come back into the car and say, oh, I really needed that. Now I'm good for a few days. Who has had that experience?
Only with rotten dead kill.
Huh?
Only if it's rotten.
Only if it's rotten. Well, okay. Who has had that experience? Why not?
They do in Alaska.
That would be a carnivore response. That would be a cat's response. That would be a dog, unless the dog, you know, of course our domestic animals don't quite count because they're so overfed. They lost some of that zest, you know, for fresh roadkill in particular. All right, so we don't have that desire, first of all. When is the first time you saw an animal being slaughtered and you were really there and you looked the animal in the eye and you saw it being slaughtered and you thought, good for you?
Never.
When have you seen a child observe an incident of slaughter and come and say, Mom, can I do that too? Can I do that too? What happens to the child when it's first exposed? It's traumatized and it cries. And I have my own story, but we don't have time for all of that. Well, we have a couple of minutes. I loved being on this little family farm as a kid. I was 8 or 9. And my parents would send me, I loved traveling. I never was afraid of traveling. So I was in that, at the farm, and the young farmer's son in his 20s came home and said, come on, you need to see this, Johanna. And so I followed and stood by the barn. He said, stand right there. And he grabbed a chicken and an axe and chopped that head right off, released the chicken, and it fluttered without its head. And what did I do?
Right.
Did I look forward to the soup?
No.
To the chicken meat?
Nope.
I cried for days. I couldn't eat. I was hypersensitive in those kind of ways anyway. But yeah, so I think many of us, if we had those experiences, we would realize that there isn't an instinct in us that wants that process of killing another creature to feed ourselves. But then there are very simple anatomical differences. Why can the cat eat that roadkill even when it's rotten? Why?
That has these sharp teeth in the back.
It has these sharp teeth that cut like this and tear the meat, and it swallows the entire lump. We couldn't get those lumps down our throat. And then how does it digest those lumps of meat?
As a shoot.
Enzyme.
No. It has something else in its stomach.
Acid.
It also needs enzymes. But acid. How much more acid than does a carnivore have in its stomach? 10 times more hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid. You know what hydrochloric acid does when you get it on your skin? It burns, it scars, it eats your flesh. And it makes those terrible, terrible disfigured faces that we've heard about in some countries where women are, where acid is poured on women's faces because their husband or their father or somebody thinks they didn't behave properly. So yeah, they have 10 times the hydrochloric acid that we have in their stomach, so they can dissolve that big lump of meat. One more item. A carnivore can eat up to 1/3 of their body weight in one sitting. What's your weight? Sorry, I don't want to embarrass you. You can say whatever you want. 140. My body weight too. So what's 1/3 of 140? 140 divided by 3. Just take 150, So 40 pounds, let's just say 40 pounds of raw meat in your lap. Eat, please. It's heavy. I mean, I can actually not really carry it like that. It's really, really heavy. Now eat that in one sitting. Anybody thinks they could eat 1/3 of their body weight in one sitting? And that carnivore can then live off of that 1/3 of its own body weight for up to 10 days without needing to eat more. It's fine. Yeah.
So what about the comparison that people make, not with the extreme of us being carnivores, but omnivores versus the whole raw foods?
Well, if you're an omnivore, you still have to have that instinct. You still have to digest the raw meat, and you still have to have acid to digest it. So an omnivore has the acid amount and also eats more. There aren't really many true omnivores. Bears are omnivores. Although they tend to be more carnivoric than herbivoric. What are you thinking of in terms of, dogs can be omnivores.
Yes, I guess it's because if humans cook the meat that we're able to digest it better. There's one of the reasons we cook the meat, because our body then can accept it better. And what do we do when we cook the meat? Do we just throw it into a pot of water and eat it?
Spices.
What are the spices made of?
Plants.
Tell me a spice that's made out of another animal. We can put some hooves in there, shaved up, and a little bit of, right, pork rinds.
Yeah.
We can use some tiger sperm. I think that's supposed to be really good for virility or something. So, but those are not tasty things, right? What makes bacon tasty is not the pig skin. What makes bacon tasty is the salt, the smoking. And smoking, of course, is fire from, again, woods. So, yes, we use plants to make the meat taste like plants so that we can actually eat them. All right. Enough of that. We want to get to, so we have a couple of reasons why it would be better to add more of that raw food to our diet, because it revitalizes. Does anybody here have a story of people healing certain things, or has heard of stories healing themselves?
Several years ago, I went to the Optimum Health Institute. And
Yes.
And at the end of the week there, about 30 people stood up and each came to the mic and said that their doctors told them they only had so much time to live because they had cancer. And they went on an all-raw diet and the cancer was gone.
Yes, the cancer is not gone in a week, don't get me wrong, but it needs a whole while to for the body to eat up that growth.
Quite a while.
Yes. Yeah. But there are many such institutions who have endless thousands and thousands of stories. There's the Hippocrates Health Institute in Florida. Anybody heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. And my dear friend Brian and Anna Maria Clements are there. Then there is Gabriel Cousins, Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life in Arizona, and many smaller institutions. There's Culinary Institute of Light, which is next door. Sherry is doing a lecture. Sherry Soria, she pronounces it, and so forth. So now there are globally many institutions that help people heal even from cancer. Now, we don't cure anybody. We just help you, finish the sentence? Cure yourselves. Exactly. Thank you. That's what it's all about. But in order to be able to cure ourselves, we need to take responsibility for this body first. We need to sometimes have that experience that I was describing when I had this mini stroke. You know? I need to get back into this body. I need to keep this body because I want to be around for my kids. I want to be around for my grandkids. We need to have a reason that drives us. Or, I still haven't finished my project. I want to build so many new solar homes, or so many, whatever it is. But you need to have a reason to live in order to move you forward so that you really take responsibility and take care of this body. Let's hear a couple of reasons that you have why you went vegan and why you think you might benefit from more raw food. Yes?
I have an autoimmune disorder, and I had become unresponsive to my medication and was taking an excessive amount of it. And I finally, with the help of my friend, realized that I shouldn't be ingesting grams of this chemical per day. Not only supporting pharmaceuticals, but also, if it was at the point that my body was becoming unreacted to it, is it really doing anything for my body at that point? So I just decided to cut it out.
Yes, and I would love to mention, look up Patrick Baboumian, one of the strongest men in the world, vegan, high raw, kind of buddy of mine. These huge muscle packets, he has many world records. And those are sometimes the things that young men need to know, that there are these people who are incredibly strong on a high raw diet, vegan. May I, because we're almost out of time, may I pass this around for those who have not signed up, who would like to sign up? It's for our newsletter, and I'm also giving out 3 half-price personal private consulting sessions with me. I do a lot of health coaching and finding out which way you want to go. So I'm giving out 3 half-price sessions. If you want to sign up for one, then that would be your opportunity. I can't do them in this room because there's other lectures in this room. Yes, but we can set them up. We can do them.
Are you based in the Bay Area?
No, I'm in New York, but I'm here on Monday, and I can do them on Monday, and it can also be by phone.
Do you have a book?
I have a book. It's not out. I have actually 3 books that are coming out, but one of them is Raw Foods Are Awesome. One of them is Freedom Fund Genius, Turning Learning into Adventure. I'm very involved in creating a new type of Waldorf school that has a raw kitchen and has a much more free learning style. Yeah, so those are my fields as well, the education.
Do you have any suggestions as to how to make raw foods real simple? Like say, we're used to just coming home from work and you gotta throw something together.
Right. At 4 o'clock, I will do a food demo in the room next door, in the other little room, and I will make a raw pate, which you can use on your breads, I will explain to you how to make raw bread as well, although we can't make it because it needs to be dehydrated. I will make a raw pate out of veggies and nuts and seeds. And I will make a fruit chocolate mousse, an extremely delicious mousse that you can make. And you see, the good thing with these foods is that you can make a lot, either freeze them or put them in your fridge. They'll last for a couple of weeks. And you keep eating them. And you put all your ingredients into one machine, press the button, and you're almost done. You just have to know what to put together to make it really delicious. And again, deliciousness is key. Because food needs to be what?
Tastes good. Easy.
Fun. Easy and fun. Exactly. And I say Easy Fun Raw is the title of the talk. So food needs to be fun, food needs to be delicious, food needs to be beautiful. And again, so if somebody has not signed the book, just raise your hand. It's coming around. Good. And I would love to have 2 last questions. Yes?
Well, I've heard that a food is considered raw and you get all the enzyme benefits if you blanch it or cook it up to a certain temperature without going up higher. Do you agree with that? Like, I think it's...
Well, we just figured out what is the temperature of life.
Like it could go maybe to 115 at the most.
Right. So you won't blanch anything really at 120 degrees.
You don't agree with that?
But no, I don't. Because it's still dead. I mean, I do eat some cooked foods like sometimes, and unfortunately you heard what happened. In this case, I actually get phlegm that I don't get normally. But you can have all those beautiful veggies. You can dehydrate them a little bit, then they get softened. There are many ways of doing the raw kitchen without having some warm foods, for example. That was also a concern. Yes, sir.
Are there certain raw foods in particular that help us to protect ourselves? There's so much toxicity, electronic toxicity,
yes.
air, water.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's something we should
Again, there is so much we cannot do. We cannot change the waters and the skies and the pollution around us. But we can strengthen our own immune system to such an extent that we literally don't get sick. Yes, you can strain your voice, or you can get bitten by mosquitoes, or you can, like me here, and you can stress yourself. You can still overstress. For example, when I was building my company, Johanna's Raw Foods, I was sleeping very little. I was working 7 days a week, round the clock all the time to try and take this baby to the next level. When you do a manufacturing company, it's very tiring. And I got so stressed that I started having back pains and leg pains, but it was all just stress. The moment I realized that I can say to my brain, stop it already, let go. It's okay, we're going to survive. Whew. The pain goes away. So, again, you can ask me more about how that works. There are many books about that phenomenon as well. All right. Everybody, I thank you for participating so actively. I love it when people are so attentive. And I want to give yourselves a big hand, and I want you to give yourselves a big hand. And a little more raw food in everybody's life does a lot of good. Ask me for more. And if you've signed, you will get a letter how to get more information.